Look at this, Mark. We're working on the weekend.
That's
We're
right.
we're live because the story never ends. And what else do you got to do? I mean, relax and watch TV and play games? No, you'd rather talk with me and the lovely audience here about OGL and the future of Dungeons and Dragons because once again, we called it. Now, for those of you who don't know, D&D Shorts has been working on a video for several weeks now, and they've been talking to multiple insiders. And those insiders gave the future of Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, Eric, thank you for sponsoring the channel.
Oh boy.
That is
There we go. You can see the name that's on that. That is one of my family members who was trying to trick you into reading it off.
really
Yeah, look what it says.
Eric Seifter. It could
Yes.
just be a coincidence.
It could just be a coincidence, but it's not.
Well, Eric is an awesome logo. But anyhow, hey man, I don't care who you look. If I tell my parents about this, I wouldn't be surprised if I see them as sponsors. Anyhow.
Yeah, it's my dad. He's decided to sponsor us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Seifter. Your son is doing a great job. The point is that this video is good. However, I'm just going to say it. Every single thing, more or less, that was revealed in this video, if you've been watching Roll for Combat, and if you've been watching some of our last videos in like last 8 months, where we were predicting the future of Dungeons and Dragons, we were talking about the future of D&D, we're talking about the virtual tabletop, we're talking about how much money they were going to spend. We called it all. It's 100% accurate, or rather, we were 100% accurate, and it's just nice to have a secondary source confirm everything we said.
Well, I mean, five primary sources
Yes.
confirm. I mean, you're not the primary source. Those
No.
WotC stuffers are.
Yeah, but the point is, we've been saying this, and really, even in the last couple of weeks, little things like, and I don't know if you even saw, and we have a creator channel where we talk to each other, and I was saying that they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this VTT. And a lot of people are giving us pushback because they're like, that's insane. How is that possible? And he says it in his video, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. I wrote out all the points that we can go through to compare and contrast, and we'll answer your questions. But basically, we'll go through what he has as his confirmations, and what the future is for D&D is what we've been saying is that they're trying to turn it into a video game. They're trying to turn it into something it's not. They're trying to turn it into a microtransaction service, and they're trying to use the D&D brand to turn into basically an MMO that is like an MMO light that is very much modeled.
Sort of a hybrid between
Yes.
Some of the lessons taken from MMOs and transactional mobile games, and some lessons taken from D&D storytelling, kind of a mashup of those.
Yep. And even the price point, like we were saying, $30, and D&D Beyond said, oh, there's not going to be a D&D Beyond subscription for $30, but the D&D Beyond and the VTT are going to be separate products. So D&D Beyond can say anything they want.
Or at least that's what they speculate.
Yeah.
That is what D&D Shorts and some of those people speculate, that it might be called something else, and that might be why they said
I 100%
that it's technically not a D&D Beyond tier that's $30. It's going to be called the D&D something else, like D&D World or D&D other D&D name.
The code name is Sandcastle. So Sandcastle is the code name for this product. What is your thoughts, Mark, since you you were on all the streams where we predicted this?
I was there when you predicted it, and when you said it, and I thought about what you said, it made sense. Like, I didn't think you were wrong. I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that myself because I don't have the same connections to in the world of MMOs and video games to like the inside people that you do, and I know you're always keeping up to speed with them. But given the pedigree of Chris Kyle from like Zynga and some of these other MMOs, like, it makes sense that he wants to base it on microtransaction. Everything you said about their acquisition of D&D Beyond, the only thing that you were slightly off on is, I think, the fact that you didn't predict that Wizards' left hand and right hand didn't know what each other were doing, and that Chris Kyle wanted to destroy Beyond while somebody else went and acquired it, and he didn't want to acquire it at first, and they had to kind of scramble around it. You kind of thought that that had been a sort of a consolidated effort and had been done on purpose. And it sounds like from the leaks, two different people at Wizards did something else. I mean, obviously it works for them. If they acquire it, they can destroy it or replace it. But I would say you're still basically right. That doesn't mean you were wrong overall, but that was, I think, the only thing that was a surprise to me in
So
terms of their strategy was that they actually.
Out of the 500 things I predicted, I might have been slightly incorrect on one,
but it still
and even
was
that.
right in the end.
Yes.
It's just like you gave like the reason for why something happened was a strategy that they really had that strategy, but they were going about it a different way, and then somebody else in the company just did it. Yeah. So you were hugely accurate on this, and these 5 different primary sources. And I want to add, for anyone who's watching this and we're like, wait, but didn't one of D&D Shorts' sources say something that was wrong about playtesting? That was apparently a 6th Wizards of the Coast source, and who was not included in the recent video, which you should definitely watch on D&D Shorts' channel. It is a very important video for getting primary sources about this. That 6th person just didn't get any of their quotes added. If you're like, are these really WotC people? They were vetted with like actual video calls and messages to their LinkedIn profiles that were double checked by not only like Ginny D and Nerd Immersion, but then also Treant Monk, who was initially skeptical of D&D Shorts after the time that D&D Shorts posted the one thing about playtests that turned out to be wrong. So D&D Shorts got in Treant Monk to check all of these too. And Treant Monk verified them. So I think that you can trust that while obviously it's one side of the story told by 5 particular people who confirmed each other on that, and that people from other teams at WotC may have a different experience than those 5 people. Obviously, I don't think Chris Cow's experience of himself is that he's always yelling at everyone and belittling everyone. He probably thinks of himself in a different way, right? But it does seem to be real primary sources from the company who are saying these things. They have having private company chats with each other, and that just as a big reminder, and I'm saying this on Twitter, I'm going to say this here: the creative team, D&D Short says this too. Creative team of D&D are not in favor of these changes. They do not want to do this. They don't want to destroy the OGL and do these things that are going to destroy the community. Please support them. Don't send threatening, hateful messages or anything like that. If you send anything to the D&D creative team members, send them love and support, because they are probably the most upset and anxious, worried about this. Just from my own experience of like working at a company when like you don't know exactly what leadership is going to do. The thing I was most worried about back in those times was whether or not the fan base would incorrectly equate leadership decisions with the creators who supported the fans. And I was very fortunate, because the one time that happened to a much lesser degree than this at Paizo, people like correctly made a distinction. One thing that helped is the freelancers went out there and told everyone, hey, this is a distinction. We're here. We support the creators. So I want to be someone who supports the D&D creative team, because everything we've seen from D&D Shorts video, there are multiple positive comments about the creative team. Jeremy Crawford and multiple other people at Dungeons & Dragons who care about everything that's going on and do not support the sort of things that the executives are doing.
Yeah, I mean, before we get into some of these points in his video, and I mean, I thought maybe we'd watch it, but I don't think we need to watch it. I'll just summarize a lot of these points. It's not a very long video. You could watch it. There's a link in our description. And I have been looking at a lot of people going through D&D OGL 1.2 rebuttals. And a lot of people have been writing like what they liked and didn't like about the OGL 1.2. And the point for me is it doesn't matter. I'm not going to do that. If anything, and we said this last time, there's 3 things that have to be included in the next OGL. And if any of these 3 things are not included, it doesn't matter. And by the way, they're never, I'm calling it now, never going to include any of these three things. So this, in my opinion, this is just a war, and don't expect OGL 1.2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to ever do what we need it to do. First is they have to stop trying to revoke 1.0A. It's simple as that. They are not going to. They're going to try to revoke it. They're going to say they're revoking it. And it's because they have to force everyone onto this new platform. I've been saying it from the beginning. If any future OGLs say that they're revoking it, then it's a non-starter. Simple as that. I don't even care what it says in the rest. Simple as that. And it won't hold up in court, but it doesn't matter because it just shows that they're not trying to work with the community. So that's it. So OGL 1.0A has to stay intact. They can't try to revoke it. They have to make sure that they are not even mentioning revocation. The second pillar of what needs to be done is they cannot control anyone who uses sources in OGL 1.2. You know, whether it's morality clause, whether it's they can revoke your license at will, anything like that. I was talking to my lawyers. There are over 100 years of legal precedent on trademark and IP law and protecting those. You do not need to put this language in an OGL. Simple as that. There is tons and tons of legal precedent if they want to protect their brand. Simple as that. They don't need to put it in here. They don't need to put in morality clauses. They're doing it to try to control you, control people. If they don't like you, they can cancel you. Simple as that. If it has any of that language in there, then it's a non-starter. And then the last piece that they cannot put in at all is anything to do with VTTs. They were saying, oh, you can't use anything you don't, mirror in your tabletop home experience. I've been playing online with VTTs for 12 years. That is the only way I play. That is my home experience. I don't have a table that I can sit down and play on. I use VTTs. I've invested a lot of money in my VTTs. I have scripts. I have modules, effects, everything that I've bought on multiple VTTs. I've used every single one there is. If they're trying to kill the VTT market so they're the only game in town, first of all, it's not legal. And second of all, too bad. Okay? That's not how this works. You can't just say...
You predicted that too.
Yeah.
You predicted that so early in your early predictions. You said, as soon as you saw their demo, even before that, you were vaguely predicting it, but then you were like, I'm sure now they're going after the VTTs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you were right. We even have quotes from the employees at the D&D Shorts video that said that the whole aim of 1.1 mainly was to destroy the other VTTs, and that everyone else, for the most part, was collateral damage, which, like, that seems like they could have changed things a little bit to not. I mean, 1.1 seemed like it was a little too nasty to the top third-party publishers as well to be ridiculous. Really just collateral damage. That's what the primary source at Wizard said at the very least.
So those are the three things. It's like you have to leave OGL 1.0A alone. You have to not have any controlling clauses in the OGL, and you cannot mention or try to control other VTTs. That's it. Everything else is secondary. And if a single one of those points is violated, then it's worthless, in my opinion.
I have a fourth thing.
Okay.
All of your things are right, but I have one more thing, which is they can't leave themselves a way to secretly, sneakily revoke it. I know it's called termination and severing in there, but they can't find a way to just take it away later or change it, because otherwise you could have promised people things that they paid for in a Kickstarter or have printed lots of books that you paid for, and then suddenly have to go back on the Kickstarter or have the books be scrapped, and you are now bankrupt and in a massive debt. So they cannot have the ability to do that.
That's part of my second pillar, by the way.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I consider that
pillar.
a little bit different than their ability to directly control you, but it is sort of the same, which is basically them getting leverage over you so that you're basically like you're basically at will employees for them because they have many toggles to just get rid of you or ruin you if you don't cave into other demands that aren't in the license, right? Because there would be nothing stopping them from intimidating you and be like, hey, we noticed that you published something that had discussed someone who was recovering from like suicidal ideations. We think that is harmful, but we're not going to actually kick you out of the OGL as long as you also do this other thing for us or something like that. They could basically, like you said, like it says in the video's description, that it's about control. Like, or maybe that's in the thumbnail. And
it is.
They can establish control in so many ways with some of the clauses they have in 1.2.
Yeah, it's all about control and money. And as I said, and look, I appreciate a lot of people. The Foundry statement was superb. There was a lot of good statements. A lot of people were going point by point, and they were saying, well, 1.2 is much better than 1.1, but here's all of our issues with it. I don't know if we're going to have time to put out an official rule for comment statement, but I'm putting it out here video wise. They're both completely 100% unacceptable. Just because the first OGL 1.1 was absolutely 100% atrocious and unacceptable doesn't mean 1.2 is just slightly atrocious and unacceptable. They're both unacceptable and they're both atrocious, just in different ways.
One of them just has some like 1.2 has some clauses that are nicer, but by having the ones that let them change it or remove it, or the by violating those three pillars, you still like it's dangerous to sign on to it.
Oh yeah, and it's and they're gonna die on this
better,
hill.
But it's better in a way that doesn't matter because they can change it again or do any of those other things.
Yeah, and there's a tweet I put out, I think like a week or two ago, that's still getting likes. That I said they're never giving up these items. They're just not. They're never going to give them up.
That's what D&D Short said when seeing these primary sources.
Yeah.
In the recent video, he said like basically we should try, but they're probably never going to give them up. And that's what Linda Codega tweeted about and was just like, I think they're not going to give it up. So it comes down to what else you can do. Yeah. And I know some people got upset with the exact wording on that tweet, but it does at least seem like people with more evidence are saying that they're not going to give up on that. I'm going to try to see. I'm going to do the surveys. I'm going to keep asking them to please change it. But Stephen, I think you're right. But if I don't try, I can't say that I tried.
You're completely right. Linda, I've been talking a lot, and I mean a lot, in the last 2 weeks. They and I talk a huge amount. They're on our show on Tuesday, and we'll talk about it. And I believe, and I'm not going to put words in Linda's mouths, but I think everyone is truly hoping that this works out. Because why wouldn't you, okay? Why wouldn't you truly hope it? And I think people might be even a little negative towards us because we're saying, it's like, oh, you guys are so negative. I'm like, no, I'm being realistic. And this is a business. I've said this 100 times. WotC, what do they do for a living? What is the purpose of WotC? And you can say, oh, they make Magic the Gathering or they make Dungeons and Dragons. No. Their purpose is to make money. A byproduct is Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. That is the byproduct of making money. Simple as that. And it's cold. It's horrible. Even my closest friends can't believe what's going on. But they are in a bind. Hasbro is in real trouble. Ever since Toys R Us went out of business and they lost all their distribution, pretty much their distribution channels for physical products, plus the pandemic, they have seen the future and it is online, and they realize that they have to move everything they can online. Not only that, there's only a couple of their products that they can move online. You can't really move GI Joe and Barbie and Monopoly and all their other products online. You just can't. You can to a point. But Magic the Gathering, oh boy, can you move that online? They already have with Arena and now D&D. And oh boy, can you move that online? That is their future. And they're consolidating their brands. And, in 10 or 20 more years, I swear to God, I don't know if Hasbro, they're definitely going to fall out of the Fortune 500. I think they'll either get bought just for their brands, like by Disney. Of everyone saying, I see people like Elon Musk this. No, if I was going to call it, I'll say Disney will buy them.
How is that one of your 100%, or is that more like just a guess? 60%.
That's 100% because I can go into Disney and how they make money. And people won't believe it, but like Disney makes no money. I don't know if we talk about this. Disney makes like 10% of their money. No, I think it's 13% of their money is on movies and television. Think about that. Think about how big their movies are. Every single one of them makes $1 billion. That's not where they make the money. It's all on the parks. And it's all about brands. They're all about is brands. And they always need new brands. And if they can buy Hasbro and get all those brands, because there's a lot of brands, they'll do it. So I'm saying they're buying. Disney will buy Hasbro in a heartbeat. By the way,
if they can,
they're public, they can do it whenever they want.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they can
so
do it.
Like I know you were saying that people are saying that we're being very like negative about the possibilities in the future. I haven't seen that a lot, and I would say that like I'm trying to be open to possibilities. When I took the surveys for 1.2, I didn't just put the lowest rank for every question. There's some of the sections that I thought were pretty good and I put higher rankings on. I only put the low rank for the ones that hit Steven's pillars, the ones that were like their ability to change it, their ability to terminate it, they trying to revoke OGL 1.0A, the virtual tabletop policy, and those things. So like I feel like I am open to being proven wrong, but or to even like things doing better than I thought. But I do agree with you, Stephen, that it's probably true. Oh, Stephen and D&D Shorts and Linda Codega and other people, that it's probably true that they're never going to back down on 1.0A. I just hope maybe they can find a way that they do. Maybe.
So, by the way, actually, some good points are being made. I'm reading the chat.
There's super chats here.
Well,
too.
Also regular chats. Greg Phillips said Embracer Group. Okay, Embracer Group or Disney. I actually will amend that. Embracer Group has been going insane and buying up everyone. So that is actually a good point. Embracer Group is foreign, and for them to buy a publicly traded company, they have a lot more hurdles to go through with the FTC. So I don't know how that would work, and they probably have to set up. I mean, I don't know enough about the Embracer Group, but I think they'd have to set up a U.S. subsidiary and buy it through them. But then as for Hasbro getting bought out by Disney, I don't think it's going to happen now. Hasbro just spent a lot of money on Fox. But someone did say something very interesting, is that Hasbro is trying very hard to get into the female market and how they did with the girls and princess lines. In fact, Miss Marvel.
You mean Disney?
Disney.
Fox.
Yeah, sorry, Disney. Yeah. Miss Marvel, although didn't do fantastic numbers, if you read all the tweets and information, they being Disney was very happy with Miss Marvel because it did very well with the younger female demographics, which is all they care about. And so even though it didn't catch on and latch on like the way, Obi-Wan or The Mandalorian did, for the markets they're trying to penetrate and get into, it did extremely well. Barbie is still one of the biggest, most popular, influential brands in the entire world. If they bought it, I don't even think they'd care about, they don't care about Magic, they wouldn't care about D&D. They would care about My Little Pony. They would care about Barbie. Like, those are the brands that they're going to go after and try to get. And try to like do something with. So again, we're kind of getting a little off topic because I can talk about this for a long time, but I follow this stuff very, very closely. I don't think Tencent will go after them. I used to work with Tencent quite a bit in the past, and they have been changing their tactics the last couple of years. They used to be pretty much what the Embracer Group was doing is what Tencent used to do. Tencent's kind of calmed down a little, and I don't think they're going to be doing any acquisitions in the near future. So again, Hasbro does not own Barbie. Yeah, you're right. Who owns Barbie? Sorry. Mattel owns Barbie, right? I believe. Yeah, Mattel owns it. Sorry. Well, you know what? Then they'll buy Mattel. You're right. You're right. They can do that. You're 100% right. I apologize. Ooh, Mattel is cheap too. Look at that. They're only
different brand.
They're $7 billion. That's it. That's like nothing. They could buy that in a second. Yeah, you're right. The point is, they would look for, I think, specific brands that are hitting demographics they're looking for. And that's actually one of the reasons they bought Star Wars, is not even for, the name Star Wars, but for the brand and actually being able to get generational people, because they can both get the kids and then the adults who grew up in Star Wars. And it worked, by the way, because Disney Plus became it. They got as many subscriptions, 2 years of Disney Plus, that Netflix took 10, 15 years, and they did very, very well. So sorry about that. I did mess that up about Mattel. Anyhow, let's look at some super chats. But before we do super chats, I'm just going to run through the quick list I have here that D&D Shorts said that we got correct. D&D is going digital only. We said that. Physical books as collectibles. We said that. Numerous in-app payments, including tile sets, minis, apparel, armor, weapons, spell effects, and adventures themselves.
Yeah, you had that.
I had that.
For sure.
We had the VTT was going to be, they're spending 100+ million. I've said about 250 million, and that they had senior engineers, high-end, expensive senior engineers on that. He said the same exact thing. I've been saying it because I know the people working on this. I know what they cost. Trust me, they're very, very, very expensive. No DM that they want to have auto group, and they want, if that you're by yourself, you can either play with AIs or you can play with groups, and they would do matchmaking just like in MMOs, and that they can have a DM, or they can have not necessarily an AI DM, but they can have a scripted DM, which is, that's called the video game, by the way. Completely possible, especially if you do a linear adventure. You come out with these pre-made linear adventures. I don't know if anyone ever played Dungeons and Dragons, the MMO. They had that. You would go in and play an adventure, and you would do it in 3D with your friends, and it was pre-written and scripted. That's easy. That's been around for 20 years. People were thinking, an AI DM, they would figure out and talk to you. No, it's a video game. It's going to be a video game. Very easy to do. This is a no-brainer. Let's see. Subscription-based, $30 a month. We said it was going to be $30 a month. They also have here that D&D Beyond and VTT are two separate products. We also said that. That's what I have in my list. That they want to put everyone out of business. Yeah, I said that too. That they said that they absolutely hate Kobold Press. They hate Roll20. They hate Foundry.
I didn't see the quote of them hating Kobold Press and the other non-virtual.
No, they didn't say that, right? They didn't say that, but they hate everyone. They believe that everyone is stealing their product and getting their money. They did talk about the VTT, but other leaks and people I've spoken to say they want everyone out of business. They want to be the only ones, and that they hate that anyone is doing this. Did I miss anything? I didn't go through it, but that's pretty much everything that we said. So mods are still around, by the way. They're all over the place. Do you want to go through the super chats?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay. Start with June, I believe.
So, yeah, June said top creators were going to get exclusive contracts, so OGL 1.1 would have defaulted to majority of smaller creators.
Yes.
True, but the exclusive contracts, which Linda Kodega reported on, were still bad. They had 15% royalties instead of 25%.
I'm going to give you guys, do you want a scoop that no one has been reported on? Let me know. If you guys want a scoop, no one has reported on. Nobody.
Even us?
Nope, not even us. Because I didn't want someone to get in trouble, but I'm going to give you what was in the contract. What was in the private contract?
Well, didn't Gizmodo give something about it? Like
no one's
mentioning some of the terms?
I have the terms. I have them.
Okay.
I actually have what they were going to get. No one has gone through this. All right? Mark, you don't even know this, okay?
Really? I mean, you showed me the terms for...
Oh, maybe I should have said. Maybe I did
them.
copy and paste this to you. Well, you'll tell me in a second when you see this. You'll say, oh yeah, Steve, you did tell me that. All right, hold on. I'm going to scroll back up and find the terms. You can do the next one while I find it.
Linda did report on this, saying that signatories would have 15%,
right,
instead of 25%, and that there would be a commitment to market them on various D&D Beyond channels and platforms, except during blackout periods. That's very similar to the thing that you sent me before.
I have what they were going to do.
Okay.
She gave the vagueness. I keep saying she. They have the vagueness. I have the specifics. I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to get if you sign that contract. How about that? That is a scoop that no one has reported yet. So
that is awesome.
Yes. No, they were completely right, and I was thinking of doing this for a while, but it's kind of died down. But now is as good a time as any, and let me just find my... You can do the super chats while I look for this.
Sure, I'll do the super chats while you're looking for it. So Eric Wahlberg says, Imped to me is WotC going to hide the rules set behind a paywall, no books, just digital. So it sounds like what D&D Shorts has gotten from those 5 internal sources, which match what Steven was predicting they were going to do, is that the books would exist, but more as like a collector's item, just for like collectors who want to have them on their shelves. And the main venue would be in their new like 3D VTT-esque digital market type situation.
Okay. Here we go. Drum roll, please. Here's the scoop. Okay, Mark, you did see this. Okay, so the private contracts for OGL 1. I remember we're up to 1.1. It was for 2 years. They'd only have to pay 15%. And they would get the following. This is what they get. They get 6 articles on D&D Beyond about their products. They get 6 emails to all D&D Beyond people who opted in, just as players. They get 8 social media posts on D&D Beyond or D&D brand channels. They would get 2 YouTube videos on D&D Beyond or D&D brand channels. And this is, again, for their specific products that are branded for 6th edition D&D. It would have to be for 6th edition. And 6 days of D&D Beyond homepage placement. So these were the carrots. Because everyone's like, what were they offering them that would make anyone sign it? They were offering this. This was the carrot, 15%, and these social media placements on there, and they said they have about 15 million people in the D&D Beyond database. There are blackout dates where there were dates where you could not request to have anything put on D&D Beyond, any of these articles or social media or YouTube posts. But other than the blackout dates, this is what you can request. And these articles and requests was over a period of 2 years. So there you go. If you liked what I just said, give us a like and a subscription, because
I mean, even if you didn't like it in the sense that you thought it was a good thing to you happen.
Like that we broke it. Here, I'm going to post that in the chat. Oh, it's exactly 199 characters out of 200. Boom! There we go, people. That is what you got. Look at that.
There you go. You can fit it in.
Yeah, look at that.
So while it was happening, my chat scrolled past all the super chats up before Tiger's eyes. So
I will
I can't
get the
see
rest
them anymore.
So back to everyone, there you go. So that is what you would have gotten if you were if you signed on to the deal with the devil. I mean Hasbro. And as far as I know, no one did. You did June. Isaac sent a super chat and sticker. Did you do Eric?
I think I
Wahlberg.
did. Which one was that?
Eric Wahlberg, WotC's going to hide the rules behind a paywall. No books, just digital.
I did do that one. I think that was the last one I did.
Yeah, they're 100% doing that. And
finally, but they will have books as a collector's item.
They'll have books as a collector's item, but they're going to make it an all digital. It's going to be an online. Dude, it's going to be an MMO. You know how an MMO is? It's like you have to basically subscribe if you want to get things, and it's an MMO. It's an MMO. It's a Tiger Eyes,
or the MMO model at the very least.
Yeah, it's actually the worst. It's a hybrid MMO and digital app model. It's sort of the worst of both.
Like with the mobile apps and how they all have so many
monetization
in-app
methods.
purchases.
Yeah, I mean, in the video game world right now, and that was my background before this, there's unfortunately this is going to be happening in the near future. There's a shift going on because they make so much money on apps compared to games that a lot of these game developers, I think, are going to start, big ones like EA and stuff. Yeah, they'll still do like the big video games, but they're going to start just doing apps because they make so much money on apps compared to video games that are released for consoles, that consoles, I think, are starting the downward. Like everything goes up and everything, like every technology goes up and then every technology goes down. Every single one. There's never been one that doesn't. And right now, video games and consoles have been going this way, and I think we're about at the peak. I think it's going to start the downward slope. The only thing that will keep it around is casual consoles like Switch, and I'd even say Steam Deck, where you can carry around them with you. But, the hardcore gaming, I think, is just the amount of money they make on mobile it's disgusting, and there's just no competition, unfortunately. Tiger said $10. What's up, guys? Just saw you online. You're not being negative. It's realism. Yes, WotC is a creative heaven, but once the suits are involved, it's all business. I love Mark's eternal optimism.
That's where my chat is up to too, so I can see starting from there.
Okay.
Thanks. I try to be optimistic because there's a lot of my mind that is still pessimistic or realistic. So I try to push myself to have some optimism because it is sort of mentally more healthy for me. And I know that maybe I'm trying to be a little unrealistically optimistic, but I'm trying to keep my eyes open that they probably still are going to keep trying to deauthorize 1.0A until it goes to court. But I'm hoping there's a chance that they'll stop on their own, even though I know it might be very, very low.
They will. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm like this with my clients too. Like, I get that all the time. Is that people
look? I'm not going to make a business decision based on
right,
hope.
But you know what I'm saying.
I'm just going to leave myself that hope so I can feel a little bit less stressed about the fact that that it might be that you wind up in court and all of the third-party publishers are there together in some kind of class action against where Wizards calls people in, or actually no, they'll do it one at a time.
Unless you sign away your rights for class action, which by the way, that goes under my control pillar, by the way. So can't do that. You can't control us, you can't revoke it, and you can't try to limit VTTs. That's it. And if you try any of those things, then you're done. There's another super chat I just saw.
All right, yeah, let me see. It's down here. I should have it. There it is. It is from June Solar, $5. Thing is, I started another in-person campaign of 7 players playing. One had paper sheet. All the others were on the D&D Beyond app with their characters. Yeah, absolutely. D&D Beyond and whatever Sandcastle becomes, they're going to get really ubiquitous. It's going to be the way that people are playing. That's what Chris Cow wants, and that's probably what's going to happen. And that's why it's so important to support all the virtual tabletops that are already out there and make sure that they don't get kind of crushed by this. Because, oh my goodness, if you had problems with what was actually in 1.2, and we did, you could see in our video when we went through it, the biggest problem of all, or one of the several biggest problems of all, is that the virtual tabletop policy is not in it and can be changed at any time to read anything that they want it to read, because it's a separate policy that has no indication of that can't just be revoked or removed, and you agree to whatever they replace it with in 1.2. Because it says you agree to their virtual tabletop policy, which could change to be like, there are no virtual tabletops, or you pay us 100% of your revenue of everything in virtual tabletops, or anything like that could show up in their virtual tabletop policy.
Control. It's all about control. Did you do RPG Generous? Sent a $5 super chat and says,
"Oh, I see it now. RPG Gamerous.
Oh, Gamerous.
RP Gamerous. So you got those things over 2 years, but did the contract last beyond those 2 years for the Sweetheart deal? No, they after that point." As far as I've heard, you would have to renegotiate, and WotC could just do whatever they wanted. And since it wasn't the same contract that other people got, they could have even put those people probably into an even worse position by that point. I mean, not that 1.1 wasn't already a you lose position for anybody who was making over 750,000, but it didn't give any guarantees after that point. All the carrots could go away and get replaced by bigger sticks. They probably would assume that by then Sandcastle would have taken over the market and they don't need those people anymore.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Let's just say, how would you go about this? Let's say I was in charge.
Okay, so you're in charge and you're trying to make money for Hasbro.
Correct.
But you're trying to not be evil, and you're not going to try to...
I have Chris's job.
You have Chris Cow's job with everything you know about those markets, but it's Steven Glicker and not Chris Cow. So you want to support, you know about the community, you want to support the community and third-party publishers. What would you do, Steven?
I would do what people already do in this market, and this being the software engineering market. Is the first thing you would do beforehand is you would have an all-hands meeting with all the base publishers. And not only would I have an all-hands meeting, I would probably fly them out and wine and dine them. I would not do it online. I would not do it through Zoom. We would go somewhere nice and bring them all out there, spend money on them, and actually say, look, here's our plan. And I would be dead honest with them and say, we're doing this. We're making 6th edition. We're making an online VTT, and we want you to move on to it. So we would like to sunset, it's called sunsetting. I would like you to sunset all support of 5th edition materials, and we'll give you 3 to 5 years. And I would probably talk to them about that. And you would say, look, I know you have books planned for this year and next year and probably the year after. So we'll give you time, and we will work with you. And we'll give you 3 to 5 years. I'd probably try to push 3 if I could, but 4 or 5 is more realistic, but probably 3, and say, look, we are going to give you the tools. We are going to give you all this. And you outline in a really nice razzle-dazzle video, and you sit down and you truly talk to them and show that you are trying to work with them. And you say, look, we get it. We're all in this together, and we're all going to succeed or fail together. This is our plans. How can we work with you so that we all do well, that we don't sacrifice you, on the altar of money? And I won't say it like that. And let's figure this out, because this is what we're planning. What tools and what ways can we make this easier for you so that you can develop for our products going forward for 6th edition and our VTTs? This is how it's done.
Steven, let me be your GM. Okay. You're role playing as the Chris Cow character, but except for that it's you, Steven Glicker. Yes. I'm going to be your GM. So I'm going to say, all right, you succeed at your check. Okay. You have credibility. People know that you like to work together with them, and you use the same techniques Ryan Dancy may have used before. And you convince people that that you're legitimate in this, and you get the other VTTs and third parties on board. They tell you what they need, and you even get that to them. And then you put out Sandcastle, and you're trying to make however much money you're trying to make from it, and some other VTT comes in and they're not as many features as Sandcastle, and they're not the official one, but it's really cheap compared to whatever you're trying to get from subscribers from Sandcastle. And it's pretty good. It's got a lot of the features that you have in Sandcastle.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of users are kind of going to that other VTT and not to Sandcastle.
Easy.
So what do you do now?
Easy. I actually already had this figured out.
Okay, yeah, good. See, I'm not saying that it's a gotcha.
No.
I'm just trying to be a fair GM for you in this
I'm using
role-playing game of executives and dragons.
Yeah, no. So what you do is you have the VTTs people in there, and then you literally say, look, we have a committee here, and this is going to be your team. Like, you literally will put together, they're called tiger teams. It's the technical term. So we have tiger teams, and we're going to have a tiger team for the publishers. We're going to have a tiger team for the VTTs. They'll have different tiger teams for each people, and you will have contacts. So you, Cobalt Press, will contact this team. You, Foundry and Roll20, will contact this team. And we are going to give you what you need to succeed so that you can work with us to help grow the brand. So what you do is you're going to have your VTT and we're going to have our VTT. But I'm going to tell you what, we're going to come out with APIs. And APIs, it's a protocol that allows two databases to talk to each other. And we will allow you to talk to ours, and you can talk to we can talk to each other. So we both win, because maybe people want to stay on your VTT. And yeah, we will get less money, but we can at least get some of the money. And why would you want to do that and give up some of the control? Because we will give you all of our tool sets. We'll give you access to look up the SRD instantly, access to look up spells. We are going to have it on our system, and we will give you the API tool set so that you can integrate that, and you'll have plenty of time. You can have like a year or two to integrate this and test it. We're going to give you the API tool set so you can put it into Foundry, you can put it into Roll20, and you can keep yours. We're going to pay. You got to pay for the license, which is fair, because we're going to give you stuff, and you can then charge whatever you want, and you just have to give us a payment, and we can figure out the payments either based on royalty, based on the number of people who use these feature sets, which is kind of like a cable. It's like a hub and spoke model. It's like how Salesforce works. Or we do one-time payments. I'd have to look into how to do that, but that's how you do it. That allows everyone to grow together, and they still become somewhat dependent on me. That's why it's called the hub and spoke model. I'm the hub, they're the spokes, and we have pretty ironclad contracts stating that we will give you all this material, and this is what the API will continue. And we come out what's called a white paper. You come up with a white paper that outlines everything so that they can then use all these great tools in their games. Are they going to be able to get better? Here's the best part. We also put into any contracts that we get first right of refusal to purchase you. So if someone wants to buy you in the future, you have to let us do a counter proposal immediately and try to buy you instead. So let's just say Foundry is doing just as well.
Yeah, let's say it's just as good as Sandcastle.
Right.
You gave them those extra tools.
Correct.
They're like, no problem. We will pay you for it. You're giving us so much good stuff. And then Foundry just have such good devs that they managed to make something that's pretty much getting on close on par. And then you're saying that someone else is going to try to buy out Foundry.
Yes.
So then they have to give you, Wizard Steven,
first,
in the Chris Cow spot, first chance.
Yes, we get first right of refusal. So they have to come to us and say, we got a proposal. This is standard business, by the way. This is in contracts all the time. Okay, someone is offering to buy us for, I'm just saying, $50 million. But you get first right, and you can purchase us instead. And you say, okay, and there's language in there like how this works. I won't get into those details. You say, okay, you know what? We looked at the numbers. We'll buy you for $70 million. And they're like, okay. And then now you own them. And now everyone wins. You know, like that's how you do it. That's the correct way, is that it's short-term pain, but 3 years is nothing. You know, it's like in 3 years, a lot can happen. And that is how you do it in software. That's how software development does this all the time. I'm really not reinventing the wheel. but this is how I would have done it, is that you work with them as true partners. You literally have true partnerships where they work with you, and we come out with, like, if they say, hey, Watsy, Cobalt Press here, can you give us some ideas of what spells you're coming out with for 6th edition, or how this is going to work? And we will give you access to private notes, and, like, you could see our methodologies, our game mechanics. And it's like, this isn't final, but at least gives you a structure and a framework so you can start building out yours when you were ready to publish it. I mean, it's go. Like, it just really wasn't that hard to do. It really wasn't. They are literally trying to bully every single person into submission. And
well, it seems like to me that Chris Cow didn't have your full. He had similar experience with video games, or whatever, even more, because of working directly on it. Did not have your full understanding of the tabletop community, and so just thought that the strategy he actually wanted to use would work, and that it would potentially, if it worked, it would get them even more money by creating a near monopoly for stuff. And, like, he's probably right that if the market was completely different than what it actually is, and people just didn't care, and we're just like, oh, first you come for the VTTs, but I don't care because I'm not a VTT. That's not how the tabletop community is. The tabletop community, I've learned, like, in tabletop games, that, like, when, this town is being attacked, I'm not from that town, but I'm going to defend it against this rampaging dragon. And so by appraising the community, he probably thought it would work. No one would mind. It was just the VTTs and maybe a few companies that made more than 750,000 who they could paint as being, like, wealthy, ridiculously big corporations. They keep saying it's big corporations every time to try to do that. But people know that it includes smaller companies that have, like, 2 people who only a small amount of that money is actually profit.
Yep.
And so I think that they just were. It's like a game of, like, greed, where you keep rolling the die, and if you get a 1, then it all cancels out. He was trying to go for the biggest win for himself at the expense of everything else, and it just didn't work because he didn't understand.
He doesn't understand the market, and he doesn't understand how the space works. Because I always thought, if this was interesting, is that when I was in college, I took, believe it or not, a theater class and acting class. It was actually the best class I ever took. And something they said, which I always found interesting, is that theater and acting is one of the only professions in the world that requires an audience. That you can't do it by yourself, okay? You can't just, like, act. I mean, you could, but not really. You need an audience. It actually requires participation and people to visually see you do it for it to work. And I was like, that's amazing. I mean, I can't think of too many other things like that. Why I'm saying that is because Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs in general are very similar in the sense that you kind of need, I mean, yes, you can play by yourself, or you could even play one-on-one, but you need a group. It's one of these strange hobbies. And sports are like this too, like group sports or team sports. But this is a hobby that anyone can do, but you need groups, you need community, and it's built around community. So the problem with this right now is that he thought that he can just bully everyone and push them out of the way. I guarantee he's looking at these numbers. It's like, we're $1 billion company. Let me look at all these little companies that are a competition. They're all worth $1 million, $500,000, 100,000. Like, they're all these itty bitty teeny tiny companies, like a whole list. And he's like, we make more money in a week than all these companies combined make in a year. I will just push them out of the way, and we will force them to do what we want. That's it. And unfortunately, he vastly misunderstood the market, and more importantly, the society of role players, and that we're all in this together. And also that this is a lifestyle, not even brand, but this is a lifestyle. Like, people define their existence on playing TTRPGs. And by going after them indirectly, they're going after these companies, then they're going after me, the consumer. And that is personal. And now we're at war. and he vastly misunderstood this market. Boom. As simple as that. What do you think of that? I mean, I think
I
that
think
would
you're
work
right. He
very
just totally
well.
he totally misunderstood. The
No, but I mean, even
market.
like that whole plan. That's how it works in software. Like,
I think your plan sounds like it could have worked
I
just by
know.
working together with people. Instead, I think that just one of the most, there were a lot of things that were illuminating and that really showed Chris Kawa's true colors in the 1.1 license that like you put up the link for.
Yeah.
One of them, though, that I think is very, very, very important is where it just, in one of the like comment parts, not even the legal text, where it just calls everyone else, all the third-party companies, our competitors.
Mhm.
You remember that part where there's
Yeah.
like, this was never meant to be something that would provide aid and succor to our competitors.
Correct.
And that is so revealing because nobody in the D&D design team and their creative team, nobody back when Ryan Dancer was doing this thought of the rest of the community as their competitors. But Chris Cow seems to think of the rest of the community as his competitors. And just that one thing is what kind of leads to almost everything else. I'm thinking of them as not collaborators who are working together, who are on the journey together, not fellow adventuring party mates, but competitors.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Should we do a few more super chats?
Yeah, there's a few more super chats. And I don't want to do this all day. I just wanted to get
Sure.
online and just respond to this before people, go to work tomorrow. And if you want to have something to watch and, react to. But what do we have? We have Keeper of
the Fate for
Yes.
10 Polish zlotys said, any interest in PS Lost when PS4 games hit Steam? The Tower of Tones for 50 Danish krona said, books only as collector's items? So sad. Any idea when Orc will go public and how much will need to change in PF2 to shake off the OGL 1.0A? Well, you know what? Nobody knows exactly how much will need to change for IP because that's still an open question of what happens with intellectual property in games. But one good thing from PF2 is that we did rewrite text instead of just literally copying it from PF1. And Pathfinder 1 did have some things that were literally copied from 3.5. So at least it's new text. Some of it's pretty close text, though, and some of the names of things are pretty similar. So I think that I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea, but it feels to me like it's somewhere in the coin flip territory of what would happen, specifically if it went into a trial. At the very least, lawyers seem uncertain even about things that are more clear cut than this, and said that it's not nothing is a guarantee because nobody's trying to do this with a game that's this complicated. But you've got Monopoly, you've got Words with Friends instead of Scrabble, but those are like boards and very simple rules. This is beyond that in a way that just nobody knows. Nobody will know until it happens and actually goes through the courts. RJ Esposito for €2 said 6E is compatible. 6E exclusive books wouldn't work. So I'm not 100% sure. That was probably in relation with something that we said previously. Do you know what that would be about, Stephen?
Not exactly sure. I mean, the reason they said that 6E and 5E would be backwards compatible is because they wanted to salvage sales for the next 2 years, because the second you say you're coming out with a new edition, the current edition, no one buys it. Like, that's just...
Oh, that's what they were saying. So they're saying it would be impossible to make a book that was 6E exclusive because if it was so compatible.
Right. But they have to... That's why you have to sit down with all the, all the developers and third-party publishers and say, look, we're making a new version, and we need to make sure that you guys are on board, and we do not want you to tank either. So let's figure out how to roll this out together so that we all succeed.
Right. Oh,
Simple
RJ clarified in the regular chat below that they did mean what you were saying, that 6E is 5E compatible.
Okay.
So,
by the way, Hasbro, if you want to fire Chris Cow and hire me, I bet you I can save this. I'm just saying. I totally take it, and I have the same pedigree as him, if not more. By the way, anyhow.
I don't think that they're going to do that because
Never know.
they have Chris Cow up there right now,
Never
and
know.
he's making those kinds of calls. And he does not want to fire Chris Cow.
Probably not.
All right, so NGP for $5 says, can WotC realistically make VTTs stop offering the services they already provide? I've been playing with Roll20 since 2020, and I'm pretty ticked. I mean, who knows what will happen in courts, but until it goes to the court, they can, if they claim we have revoked 1.0A and 1.2 as a new VTT policy that says,
I'm going to tell you,
Roll20 is gone, then they can at least take it to the courts.
Okay, this is the way you do it. Again, that's like, I know how you do it. I almost don't want to say it, but I don't think they're smart enough to figure this out. Okay. As my lawyer says, anyone can sue anyone for any reason. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Second thing is, if they can get a patent on specific items within VTTs, specific things like spell effects or specific types of items that are so narrowly focused within their VTT, and patents are very expensive, but they can be done, but they do take time. If they can get a patent on that, which is possible, and then they can sue Roll20 and these other VTTs for patent infringement. That's the only way possible how they can enforce this. There's no other way. It's nearly, I wouldn't say nearly possible. I'd say it's more possible than copyright or trademark infringement and game rules can't be. But if they could figure out a way to patent spell effects or armor changing or tile sets or apparel or a methodology for coming out with a monthly subscription for modules, something that can be protected, then that's how they sue them. Otherwise, they have no case in court. They can sue for anything, but they'll probably lose. There you go.
Right. That makes sense. So Gilletize for $5 said, so they're a new publisher with a new setting book that was about to launch on Kickstarter soon. What's the play here? Launch before the new Ojo go lives? Wait for Orc? So here's what I was thinking about this, and it's like a choose your own adventure game. So it's like, okay, launch it with 1.08 and hope that that nothing will happen. Turn to page 23. WotC sues you because they said that since you use their content that is implicitly has pushed you into 1.2. 1.2 says any use of this content automatically pushes you into it. You go to court. You may or may not win. You have a pretty decent case, probably one of your strongest cases, but you still could lose. It's going to cost you a lot of legal fees. Okay, let's go back in our choose your own adventure. That didn't sound good. Okay, we put it under the Orc license. Turn to page 50. WotC sues you. They say that your content is very similar to their IP and that they sue you for intellectual property. That one is more of the thing that I was talking about before, where like it's a lot more involved than a Monopoly board or Scrabble. Nobody knows because nobody's ever done this. What will happen in court? Hopefully you have even more money, but WotC could lose really big there. So I don't know. They might be willing to cut a deal at some point if they're worried about a sweeping ruling against them, but equally likely you could get in big trouble. All right, well, no, I don't like that one. I'll pick option 3, use the OGL 1.2 or 3 or whatever. Turn to page 70, game over. There's not even a court case for you, game over. As soon as you use their license, their new license, unless they change it a lot, they have control over you. They can stop you at any moment. They've got, like, right now, like Stephen was saying with the 3 pillars, I think it's like 4 different ways they can sever it, terminate it, kick just you out, or do all sorts of other things to you. So I think that all 3 of anything that you can do is dangerous, unfortunately, right now. So you're just going to have to pick. That's almost like kind of what Alan said, to summarize way back when we had him on the show. It's just like
all 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. It just feels like a year ago. But he was like, you have to take your temperature for what you're willing to legally risk and how you're willing to risk being sued by Wizards. Because literally anything you do will either get you sued by them or worse if you accept the new contract as it was written. And they said they're going to change it. I'm more hopeful than Steven that they might actually change it a little more, but they probably won't. But if you sign the new one, you've already lost. Whereas the other ones, you're just in trouble and you don't know if you're going to be fine or not. That's why we're out here on Gelatilized. It's because of the fact that this is a big problem for third-party publishers. We're a third-party publisher, right? I mean, we've got content that's coming out that we've promised. We've had people already pay for on Kickstarter. We have a Year of Monsters that was going to come out every month. So people already paid to get a new thing each month, some of which were in 5e, right? So this is something everyone is going to have to decide.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, I probably spent too long on that one question.
Good.
I thought it was really important.
No, it's good. A lot of people are actually saying, oh, by the way, they'll never get the patent. I never said they were going to actually get the patent. But that's how you do it. That's the methodology and how you can fight something like that in court, is that you would need to get a patent. So just FYI.
All right. So Brandon Reynolds for $5 said, Hasbro should have done it like Jeff Bezos and undercharged their competitors until there were none left, and then do whatever they want.
No, they don't have enough money. They're not big enough.
Yeah, they're losing money now is the problem, is that they were down before. And as D&D Shorts was mentioning, and Steven has mentioned before, they were trying to like upturn things because Hasbro's other brands were doing badly, and they were kind of saving those hemorrhaging brands with the WotC part of Hasbro. And so they are desperate to try to find ways to make money. They don't have the money and the capital to play the long game and have things go down for now so that they can then take over later. If they did, of course they could do a plan like that.
Yeah, in fact, if they had Amazon money, they could have, or Google money, because that's how Google and Amazon and all these companies started out, is they just put out things for free. Before, I don't know if you remember this, but you used to, of course, now you have to pay for email again, kind of. Email was a big deal. Like, you had to pay for email, and it was crappy. You had very little space. You had nonstop ads. You had to do like Hotmail or Yoohoo. Yoohoo.com, not Yoohoo. Yoohoo. I haven't used them so long, I can't even remember the name. Like all
Yahoo?
those. What's that? Wahoo. Yahoo.
Yahoo is like the chocolate.
I know. I keep thinking Yoohoo. Yahoo. I can't. How about this way? I haven't gone to that site in probably 15 years, so I forgot the name. Yahoo. All those companies had mail services, and then literally overnight, Gmail's like, "Here you go. It's you get 100 times more storage, and it's completely free." Boom! They immediately put their name on the map. They disrupted everyone. Gone. To do disruption, which is what you're talking about, by the way. That's the technical term. It's extremely hard. It's a once-in-a-lifetime or generational event. And by the way, why we're going through this OGL? Guess what? This is a disruption event. You will maybe never see this again in your lifetime. And disruption, unfortunately, on the side of, well, not unfortunately, but for independent publishers, people like Paizo, Pathfinder, Starfinder, Free League, they are disrupting Hasbro and Dungeons and Dragons, and they're on the bad side. So this is the definition of a disruption. You know who does this constantly? The only person I've seen who does, two companies have done this on a consistent basis, is Apple and Nintendo. They are the kings of disruption, and they do it on a near constant basis, which is, people dream of doing this once in their entire lifetime, let alone on a constant basis. Anyhow.
So when you're saying that disruption is something, who is doing the disruption now then?
They're doing it to themselves.
They're doing to them. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, they did it to themselves.
They kind of disrupted their own.
They caused a disruption event, which is now causing people to move to other systems. And within a course of a week, that is the definition of a disruption event.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like this disruption event is kind of like if you live in a fantasy world and you're in town, you're a peasant, and there's a dragon that's nearby that has a giant hoard of treasure.
Yeah.
Because some people are saying, well, this is probably good for other companies because people will start looking at something other than D&D. And it's like, it could be. There's a giant hoard of gold under that dragon, but also it breathes fire, right? Because WotC could come after anybody and might be ready to sue. So unless you were an adventurer who is willing to just be like, I want to see about that gold. I'm not worried about the dragon. Like, a lot of people are scared about what could happen, but also like hopeful that, the gold could come back to the town and stimulate the economy. And that's sort of my analogy for what's going on.
HG said, this feels more like corruption than disruption. You're not wrong, but technically, in business terms, this is what's called the disruption.
Fair enough, event. But maybe corruption could be the name for when you disrupt yourself.
Yeah.
Tiger Eyes for $5 said, geez, Steven, never want to be your enemy in competitive business conflict. Advisor, yes. Foe, no.
Nope,
Lol.
you don't.
From when you were playing that little quick Executives and Esquires RPG that we were running there. Yeah. Someone in chat said that that's what we should call it. Mm-hmm. Josh Law for $5 says, have you guys checked out Scene Grinder? They got kickstarted and have a very available dev team, browser-based, and want to do a marketplace.
No, I've never even heard of that. That sounds cool. I'll look at it right now.
Well, I've now heard about it from the super chat.
I've never heard of Scene Grinder, virtual tabletop home.
Interesting. Lagoon for $10 said, honestly, can't imagine a world where I trust WotC again. My money goes to third-party creators and other systems like Pathfinder 2e. In their attempt to become a monopoly, they created fiercer competition. I guess that's the disruption that you were saying again, Steven. Then after that, Merlin Dex said, for $5, DD&D digital looks 1,000% better than any current VTT. So why is this the route WotC is taking? Make the best version. People will come. Why do this?
They're doing this because they need to guarantee short-term growth. They're sacrificing short-term for the long-term, and they need to guarantee short-term growth. And by doing so, they thought it was risk. It was a very big risk. They thought, look, we're going to bully everyone into this. We're going to put them all out of business. We are a billion-dollar company. These people are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's no competition. So we're going to bully them. Done this 1,000 times. It always works. Let's just do it. And they tried. And I guarantee, in every single scenario that they ran and all the projections, they never once thought they would fail. Never. I predict that they didn't think a single time they would fail. So they just thought, like, why wouldn't this work? And they obviously were wrong. And now they've already gone down this route, and you're correct. But they've lost so much credibility, and they've lost so many D&D Beyond accounts that this is now their only route, is that they have to somehow force people to use the D&D VTT. And I've said it 100 times. Alan said it when the first time we interviewed him, my lawyer on contract law. He said, if you want to be successful, you put out a better product. That's it. It doesn't work. And it's just, in this day and age, it may be 30 or 40 years ago, it was a lot easier to do monopolies and bully people and push them around. In this day and age, with social media and everyone online and being able to communicate and organize in minutes, it's not impossible, but let's just say it is vastly harder than it used to be. And they're finding out, and they will be a case study for business schools for years to come of what not to do. Simple as that.
Sable Phoenix for $5 said, how do you think the EU companies that are actually unionizing to get government protection from the EU in response to this dumpster fire are going to affect WotC? I didn't actually know that until Sable Phoenix said that is happening, and that's very interesting. What is your take on that, Steven?
I haven't been following it. That's the other thing, is that a lot of these rules, I've only been following mostly the US law. That's the trickiest part, is that things they're trying to implement here, and this is the downside. So, for example, right now, they put out books. Okay, the downside of books is that you have to print out a book, you have to distribute it, you lose like 50 to 60% of your profit to the people selling the books and distributors, and then you got to get it all over the country, you got to deal with, it's a pain in the neck, okay? It's a huge...
And the printer and everything else.
It's a huge pain in the neck. The upside
is... You're paying for art, you're paying for text. Yeah.
The upside is you don't really have to worry about, like, laws in different countries, really. Not much. Like, yeah, you might have to make sure you're using certain types of paper and printing material and things like that. Or, like, where your housing and distribution is. Like, for example, in Canada, like, you have to distribute within Canada. So, like, you have to literally have housing, your distribution centers in Canada to distribute Canada. And now the EU is starting to go that way, too. So, as long as you're following those rules and regulations, you're fine. But once you start going digital, you got to start, it gets way more complex. And Elon Musk is learning that firsthand on Twitter, that you can't just say, oh, I want to do this, because you just violated 50 EU laws, and maybe it's legal in the United States, but it's not legal over there, and it is a total nightmare. When they really get into this, when Chris gets into this, and this was with, by the way, so I'll give you an example. Okay, here's a perfect example. For World of Warcraft, the rules for undead depiction in China is extremely different than anywhere else.
Ghosts. They have this huge anti-ghost thing, right?
You're not allowed to show skeletons. So you can't show skeletons in China. So when they created World of Warcraft, if you can look this up online, the models for the undead, which is a complete ancestry you can play, on the Horde side, if you see them in America, they literally have bones sticking out on their arms and their legs. But they had to redo all the modeling in that country because of their local laws. In Germany and other EU countries, you can't show blood. You can't show blood, actually. So that's why a lot of games will have zombies or you're fighting robots. So instead, they have oil coming out of them. So you don't see people exploding in gushes of blood and gore. So instead, you see robot parts or you see undead. This is actually starting to go into movies, like Marvel movies. You start seeing that too, because now they're going more overseas. So they change the movies depending on the overseas. So what you're getting at is this is going to be a lot harder for them, WotC, to implement than they think. They can't just come out with a VTT that works for everyone. They're going to have to modify and change the VTTs, something as simple as the color of blood and the gore level, depending on the country it's shown in, because each country has their own rules on this. And I'm glad this guy has some background in, MMOs and MMOs, but I don't know how detailed his background is, because I remember dealing with this. That's why when I was there we worked with Tencent, because Tencent would literally have meetings with Blizzard and they would go through all this stuff with us. So we knew exactly, like they helped us. They would like go through and say, this is what you need to change to get into the Chinese market. And trust me, if you fail, your game might disappear for a year. Like, it's like they have it's like they're a communist state. They can do whatever they want. So you better adhere to these rules. So that's what I'm talking about.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So next after that is Eric Wahlberg for $4.99 said, no guarantee WotC's VTT plans will even work. Just because they build it doesn't mean we will come. Plus 1.0a will be a long court battle, which they may lose.
Yep. I mean, you're correct. Like,
unless it's a short court battle. Alan said there's some possibility it could be quick and that they could just lose it fast, as the judge is like, what are you even doing?
Yep.
So yeah, that's right. Let me see what was next after that.
Ollie.
Yes. So Ollie Wright for €6 said, reading the 2E subsystems rules today, they remind me a bit of Blades in the Dark, Clocks, and Fate contests, where they design inspiration, narrative. So I would say they weren't necessarily inspired by Blades in the Dark, Clock, and Fate contests, but they all those kinds of rules come from a similar place. And certainly clocks are another way to visualize it, which I think are a very cool way to visualize it. So if your group responds more viscerally to clocks than victory points, you can absolutely, with almost no trouble, do the 2E subsystem victory point rules that I wrote in Game Master Guide for Pathfinder 2nd Edition as a clock, where you just do the exact same thing, except for normally it's like, oh, you're collecting points, and when you have 8 points you win, you can make it a clock with 8 spokes and just move the clock towards midnight, or however you want to display it, you totally can. It's all just sort of, it's like an evolution where everything evolves to a crab. All of these things are sort of similar game design when you come down to it. So, of course, multiple designers are going to come out with pretty similar things. Cheese of Ages for $5 said, TF2 is solidly number 2 in tabletop RPG sales with all the rules totally free online. That says something. Quality and customer faith are worth a lot of money. I mean, I think that's true. What do you think, Steven?
Well, you know what? It's the number one question I've seen is like, are the rules really free and online? That's like the number one question because people can't believe it after dealing with WotC being such a walled garden and won't even put out PDFs. The concept of everything more or less online and free, including all their splat books, is mind-boggling. It's like, wow, like how do they make money? And it's like that's how, because they come out with such good art and such good books and such good lore that you're going to want to buy them and want to support them. By the way, a lot of people are saying that Tencent and NetEase are no longer publishing for Blizzard. Oh, now I'm very much aware of this. What I'm talking about is 15 years ago. I'm talking about way back in 2003. Okay, I'm talking about when they first started to launch with them. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about way back in the distant. Oof, that's almost wow. Is that 20 years ago? That's literally 20 years ago.
Yes, the ancient times, 20
years ago. And now how it works to now. So I'm not talking about. I know that deal fell through and they're no longer publishing. Someone else actually made something interesting. It's like, yes, if you want to publish in China, you have to go through a Chinese subsidiary. By the way, Europe and Canada and other companies, or actually countries, are starting to do that too because they are very worried about sort of the internet and how things are becoming one world, and they are also putting together laws and similar rules that you have to publish or work with someone within that country so that so the United States or some other country doesn't take over everything, and that's how they're doing it, by the way. Anyhow,
right. So Carl J. Smith for $20 said, I've been donating Pathfinder 2e beginner boxes to middle schools. Anyone else interested in doing this, including Black Flag in the future? Is there a way to find teachers who are interested in donations from the community? So that's really cool. I know Paizo has sometimes given books to people who were doing stuff just flat out. Like there was one teacher in Africa who was like teaching a leadership course for students who Paizo sent like Kingmaker and some other stuff in Pathfinder First Edition, and the teacher ran Kingmaker and then got the kids to like think about building the kingdom, and they started running for other groups. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I know that finding teachers who want a particular thing, there are some sites that are like a teacher goes on and says art class needs a computer, and you can donate money to that and it directly buys the computer for their class, so you know where it's going to.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a lot of those that would specifically have like game books on the agenda. I do really believe that tabletop RPGs are amazing for learning. I mean, I'm not even sure I would have gotten into MIT if it weren't for tabletop RPGs that help teach me math and vocabulary and other things.
If you want to do this, I actually use this myself. I give money to this. Donors Choose. If you haven't seen Donors Choose, Choose.
Yeah, that's the one where the teachers that I was talking about, where the teachers ask for what they need.
Yep, they ask for what they need. They ask for money, and they talk about it. And you can do both. You can do both forward and back, and then you can say, this is what I want to donate, and then teachers can come in and ask for it. And you can also try to raise funds. It can, to help purchase them from other people to give it out to teachers. There's probably other ones, but that's the one I've used. And I'll tell you something, Mark. I donated money to some kids in Florida, like low-income kids, for caterpillars. I actually like to donate things that are like nature related or things that actually grow. And I didn't expect this. I still have them. All the kids sent me a letter, like saying how they like watched the caterpillars grow. It like freaking broke me. Like, I was like, I'm like tearing up now, like seeing these like 5 and 6 year olds writing, and it freaking broke me. So, yeah, it's worth donating. Even
that seems to me, Donors Choose, and I forgot its name for a minute. Seems like a really good place because I'm always sometimes wondering exactly how much that I donate to like a big charity is actually going to go.
Oh, they will send directly you
helping people, but with Donors Choose, I know
they send you pictures
that you know that you're directly buying exactly a specific thing because you said it's for this specific thing.
Yeah.
And we do not have a sponsorship with them or anything. This is just something that we both thought of the same place when this question came up on.
Yeah, I donate a fair amount to different causes. That's one of the ones I've donated to in the past. And I go through it. And the nice thing is I like to see, because sometimes, some kids need iPads or There's some things, but usually the ones that I usually like the nature ones, personally. So those are the ones I donate to. And you can even see, but they will write to you. They'll send you pictures. They'll send you updates. They're very, very active on Donors Choose. I like that one the most. And
Awesome.
I saw something else here. Oh, a lot of kids, a lot of local schools have D&D clubs. I gotta find my book. I might have it here. When I was in middle school, I was in the Dungeons and Dragons Club, but they spelled it in the yearbook, the Dragons and Dungeons Club. I laugh all the time. I'm like, damn it. I was still upset about it then, but now it's just funny. You know what I'm going to say? I think I might have it here. You keep answering super chats.
Okay, go find it. Fool but with a PHU for £5 says the morality clause will be fun in the hands of Westboro Baptist Church. Oh, don't even get me started. Like, the fact that they have obscene in there as one of the words, which is used against the LGBTQIA community, like routinely as a way to try to censor them. The morality clause has serious issues. Conta for $5 says WotC might have trouble patenting things since the burden would then be on them to prove that it was original when they made it. Yeah, that's true. Stephen was talking about some of their patenting troubles earlier on. He may have already actually seen that comment and some other ones when he was talking about it. Let's see what we've got here. Bookworm Beth for $5 says also their VTT engine is in Unreal, which takes forever to design assets in, unlike a quick design engine like Unity. That's true. In fact, I'm not sure that's a bug for them. I'd want to hear more from Steven about that because he knows more, but that may be a feature and not a bug. It's very hard to design things so they can charge you for it more easily, because if you could just design it yourself really easily, then it's harder for them to get a lot of money from you.
Yep. I mean, I said that we said this in the past. I said like the big thing is not only are the VTTs very powerful and people are using them, they're very easy to use. Most modern VTTs like Roll20 and Foundry and pretty much all of them, they're mostly just database entry. It's mostly JSON files or through the VTT itself. And you're literally just doing HTML, JSON, database entry. And that's it. And it's very simple. Using
so it looks like
Unreal, there's a lot of 3D assets. There's a lot of people who know how to use Unreal. It's definitely very user-friendly-ish. But we're talking, it's the difference between playing, I don't know, stickball versus, baseball with an actual hard ball. It's like you can do it, but it's a whole other level of complexity and tool sets and time.
Right.
There are
it looks
a lot
like
of
RJ
tools,
Esposito, who asked about that stuff, actually is a teacher who's using tabletop RPGs for language learning. That's awesome.
Yep. I can't find I have my high school yearbooks, but this is for my it was my middle school. I gotta find my middle school. That's up in the attic, but I'm gonna find it because I'm gonna post that picture because people are like, oh my god, that's so silly. So
yeah. Let's see. Pilgrim Media for $2 said, will the movie failing affect their wrath?
Yes.
So yes, although as Eric Mona pointed out when we had him on the show, it could have knock-on effects that hurt smaller publishers that were trying to get movie deals, is what Eric said. Because they might take the wrong lessons and not take the lesson of this movie came out right after Wizards of the Coast declared war on their community, and instead be like, oh, nobody wants any movies about tabletop RPGs, even if it's D&D, let alone your small company.
It's a hard call because I know a lot of people would have petitioned the movie. I think it's all going to come down to, okay, here's how it works. I'll give you a secret because my other passion is movies. I know I'm insane. I'm like, I don't know how someone could live the life I live, but it's true. Okay, so if a movie comes out and you see reviews for it 2 weeks ahead of time, a good example was Mad Max, the 2015 Mad Max. Like, you see a movie that has reviews that come out, or Avatar did this. It comes out 2 weeks. That's a sign the movie is excellent. Okay, that's a sign that the studio has massive confidence that thing is going to be a smash hit success. So if we start seeing reviews 2 weeks before it comes out, the movie's probably really, really, really good. Okay, I'm just telling that. If we see reviews about a week before it comes out, it's probably also still really good. If we see reviews that come out, a couple days before, that's standard, okay? Very, 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 very few movies get reviews 2 weeks in advance. They only do that if it's a surefire hit, okay? Marvel movies, Avatar, Mad Max, etc. The final pillar is if the movie doesn't have previews and they don't have anyone reviewing it until it's out in theaters, that means it's a bomb. So there you go. That's true. That's how it works.
And you mean the US bomb and not the UK bomb. I've always found that really interesting. And maybe slang has actually changed since I read this, because it was some number of years ago where in the US bombing means a failed movie, and in the UK it means it's a success because it blew up.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like if we start seeing reviews like a week or two before it comes out, it's probably really good. And in a weird way, having the movie do well, it helps everyone, because now suddenly fantasy and magical fantasy, that's a hard sell. Okay? For some reason, even though Game of Thrones has done very, very well, and even though Harry Potter has done really well, for some reason, which is only funny because it's the opposite in video games and MMOs, is that in video games and MMOs, fantasy always does well. Science fiction is near impossible. Very few do well, or to levels of fantasy. Movies, it's the opposite. Science fiction usually does really well. Fantasy was always doing poorly until Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, and even that is a very specific type of fantasy.
There was also Lord of the Rings.
That came after. Oh,
that came after Game of Thrones.
No.
That came.
Way. No. That came. You're right. No. That came. That was. You're right. Sorry, my mistake. It came. Lord of the Rings was the strange. That was the first one. I'm trying to do the math. Wait.
Because that was 2001.
Right. No, 2001. Right. But there was Willow first, but Willow didn't break through, and then they tried with a whole bunch of others, and none of those broke through.
And the first Harry Potter movie was also 2001. 2001 was the era when it got
Harry
really
Potter
popular.
Books came out first, and that.
Oh, sure, but there were a lot of books, Stephen. But when it became movies that everyone was going to watch,
there was only 3 books out by 2000. By the time Harry Potter.
No, I mean there are a lot of book series that are popular.
Oh no! But Harry Potter, nothing was popular. Harry Potter was a worldwide phenomenon. When Harry Potter led to them able to do Lord of the Rings movie, which then led to things like people looking for properties to convert, which turned into Game of Thrones. And there were other properties. People forget other things that fantasy related did come out around then, and all failed.
Yeah, it got big around then.
Yes. Anyhow,
turn of the millennium.
Yes.
So let's see. Tiger Eyes for $5 said, one of my clients is a librarian. Teen section includes D&D. If yours does, donate 1 to 2 beginner box PF2E. Public libraries need your help.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Tiger Eye said. I think that's true.
Libraries
I think
too.
Public libraries would love to have something like that will help teach reading to people with an interesting game in it. So Tite Kowalski for $20 said, I'm a public high school math teacher and got the D&D teacher free support stuff from WotC, posters to promote a starter campaign and other stuff. Then they sent us a full character tile box and terrain box. It's amazing. That's awesome. I think that D&D and Pathfinder and all of those games are huge. For me, that's how I learned probability, to the extent that, I mentioned this in a previous stream, but there was a countywide math competition, and I knew the people who were actually best at math in our county. It was not me, but I happened to do really well in my final year, and it got down to within one question because of the probability I learned from role-playing games. I managed to win that competition. Everyone was like, Mark won? What? Come on. But I have tabletop role playing to thank. It absolutely helped my.
By the way, someone mentioned Conan. Dude, I love the Conan movie. I had to beg my father because it was rated R, and I had to beg my father to bring me to see it when I was a kid. And he brought me and my friend Dave, and we saw it. And I read a lot of the books too. I have seen the Conan movie 1,000 times, but easily, because whenever it's on, I watch it. I can recite every aspect of that movie, and more importantly, the greatest soundtrack ever in movies. Period. End of story. It is considered a masterpiece of soundtracking, and to this day, people still steal from it. It's so freaking good. By the way, the second movie, which is not that great, but read the book by George R. R. Martin. Not George R. R. Martin. By who wrote The Wheel of Time?
The Wheel of Time is Robert Jordan.
Robert Jordan. So Robert Jordan wrote 7 Conan books, and he wrote that one. Fantastic book. I could see why they turned it into a movie. Excellent book. Terrible movie, but the book is great. Actually, all the Jordan books, Conan books, excellent. If you want to read them, by the way.
So Adam Suter said for $10 that he considered purchasing the WotC Legendary Bundle, but decided to wait until after the holidays. He says, "Glad I did, because I will never spend another cent on WotC product. I just bought a lot of third-party books." I mean, I can see why. I'm hoping that someday that the Chris Cows of the company get dethroned, because I want to support the creative team for D&D, but unfortunately, that it's very hard to do that when that would seem to be showing support to Chris Cow and his regime of what he's trying to do here. Raygon Wolfbane for $10 said, "Sell the tool set to build in-game as a dungeon creator tier. It's an additional $20+ on top of Wizards getting a cut if you sell it, if they don't just take for their own use freely."
Yep. By the way, people are asking me to recite what's best in life. I would, except we'd probably get demonetized, so I'm not going.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
But
please
we say that probably in every D&D session, Pathfinder session. We always quote Conan, so.
AJ Pickett for $1.99 New Zealand gave a red arrow that was a thumbs up, or it was like it was a hand pointing upwards.
That is called the foam finger for you not being a sports fan, Mark.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know that I've seen people have that.
They're called foam
icon
fingers
on little foam things that they hold in sports games.
Yes.
But is that finger pointing upwards towards the thing that was above it? That was Movies Does Always books?
Maybe, or he's just supporting us with the foam finger.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure. Awesome. Thanks for giving us a foam finger. I mean, it's a nice looking finger. It's not like the bad.
Thanks for giving us the finger.
Yeah, there you go. Tiger Eyes for $5 said, "Lol, I must be a few years older because my friends and I drove ourselves and got into the first Conan movie. It was a blast."
Yep. Yeah, definitely a little. Yeah, I'm talking about the 82 one, by the way. And guys, the 80s, the best time to be alive to see movies. Lady Hawk also counts. Lady Hawk, weird movie, great soundtrack. Great bad guy, Rutger Hauer. It's a weird movie. I'll leave it at that. I will say one above that. My top 5, not top 10, the 5 favorite movie of all time. Flash Gordon. Oh, that movie is a masterpiece. And talk about a soundtrack by Queen. Oh my God, is that soundtrack good? I love Flash Gordon. And I'm not the only one. If you watch anything by Seth MacFarlane, who loves pretty much the same things. He's actually, I think he's 2 years younger. He was in the same class as my brother at RISD. My brother used to be in classes with him, and they was the exact same age and graduated the same year. Oh yeah, Beastmaster too. And Krull, I much prefer Krull. That's all I'm going to say about that. Highlander, masterpiece, and the unofficial movie of Carnegie Mellon. Did MIT have a official or unofficial movie, Mark?
I don't think so, but I'm not like as big into movies, so maybe they had one that just went under the radar.
Yes. Oh, Dragon Slayer. That's another one, because whenever we slay something in our Pathfinder games, we always do so in Dragon Slayer, Mark. I don't know if you've seen it, but they like kill the dragon and it's laying down on the ground. and then they literally have the king walk up to it with his sword and like put it in it, and then they like, "Hail, King Aragon, who slayed the dragon," and everyone's like, "Dude, you did not slay the dragon." Like you literally just. So in all of our games, we always do that. It's like, "I slayed the beast," dude. You had nothing to do with slaying the beast. I slayed the beast. And Hawk the Slayer, classic, dark man. They rip out a guy's tongue in that thing. Dark Crystal. Flesh and Blood. I just told my friends to watch that, and they couldn't believe how disgusting that movie was. Launching War Rocket Ajax. Jason McDonald is in the chat because we say that all the time. Jason knows exactly what I'm talking about. I do love Tron. Yeah, we're getting all the good ones here. Dark Crystal Labyrinth. I had a birthday party, Mark, and I brought all the kids in the birthday party to see Labyrinth. How about that? There you go. And I did it for Dune, David Lynch version. I had a birthday party and brought everyone because I am a geek.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Heavy metal? Heavy metal's all right. Heavy metal's very uneven, by the way. By the way, Dark Crystal, if you never saw the Dark Crystal show on Netflix, oh my God, was that good. And our friend, Jason McDonald, he knows it, Javier Markowitz was the showrunner for that, and he went to college with us, and he is a freaking genius. Princess Bride. Cool. Oh, I love Princess Bride. Never-Ending Story. I do not like the Never-Ending Story, and it has the most heart-wrenching scene in history of the movies. That poor damn horse. What the hell, people? Time Bandits. Yep. Everyone's already up there. Legend. Man, Legend, that is a messed up movie, by the way. If you want to like do drugs and watch Legend, there you go. Mad Max. All right. Yeah. Everyone's doing it. All right. We're going through them all. But Mark's not a movie guy, so Mark's just like, Ice Pirates.
I've seen some of these.
Ice Pirates. I just saw it again on TV. I saw it in the theater. That is a great movie. Kind of. It has very good world building. Very, very good world building. It is a weird movie. Indiana Jones. Yeah, Indiana Jones. I actually saw Indiana Jones and in the theater when I was a kid, the first one. And I remember in the beginning when the boulder's coming down, I was so excited that I looked down, Mark, and I was literally sitting on the edge of my seat. And I thought to myself, wow, it's not like a trope. I was doing it. I literally was like, oh my God. I was like watching it. RoboCop, by the way, yeah. If you want to throw up, watch the unrated version of RoboCop on Amazon.
I'd rather not.
Prime. It shows the scene where what's it called? The RX like 2000 or whatever, the big one, shoots the guy. And it's disgusting in the regular version, and they have an extended version. Oh, Escape from New York. Love Escape from New York. Fantastic soundtrack. I'm from Manhattan. When that thing came out, everyone loved it. Wizards is not that great. Wizards is messed up, man. All right, now you guys are making up things here, or you're stretching a lot. I see like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. No, that's too recent. Pi, too recent. Wrath of Khan, science fiction. DuckTales, Last Starfinder. Starfinder's good. That's Last Starfinder's actually really good. I actually based there was some of the Dead Sons campaign that we did on Last Starfinder, Fire and Ice. Red Sonja sucked. Snake Plissken. Yep, the Warriors. Not only did I see the Warriors, but I saw a Warriors reunion with Joe Bob Briggs in the movie theater near me, and they had all the original actors and some people who were in it as extras. Big Trouble in Little China. Do you like Big Trouble in Little China, Mark?
I haven't really seen it, but I do know that it's a famous movie, and that like Big Trouble in Little Absalom or Little Trouble in Big Absalom is named for it.
Oh my God, Mark, we got to do something about your geek history. Oh, Warlock is superb. I saw Warlock in college.
Look, I watch what I want to watch, which is usually not movies.
Jason, you might have seen Warlock with me. I saw that at the Pittsburgh Playhouse in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you saw that with me, Jason. Warlock, Warlock is good, by the way. If you want to see a good movie, Mark, seriously, put this on your list. Warlock, because they treat magic as magic. It's not like, oh, I just wave my hand. It's like real magic, by the way. Anyhow, let's go through. Man, people are like, people are having fun with this, though.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people were interested in this, and then some people were not. Drunken Yoda sent 49 Mexican pesos and said, too bad third-party publisher international shipping is expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's an issue. I've definitely heard about it from people in like Brazil, for instance, where the currency is different, that it can get into a big problem.
Yeah, I'm getting that because right now the most expensive place for me to ship to is Canada. And it's on purpose because they're trying. What these countries do is that
don't they have to do like 2 checks when you ship it into Canada? That's why it's so expensive. Ship it once and then a second time.
Yep, they're all these countries are making it extremely expensive because they don't want. What's happening is that you buy stuff from anywhere in the world via Amazon and get it in a day or two, and they're trying to keep. I know why they're doing it. It makes sense. They're trying to keep local businesses in business, so they put. It's basically a tax. So if you want to buy something overseas.
It's like a pseudo tariff in a way.
It's basically a tariff. Yeah, it's a tariff, and so that's how they do it. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So Fringe Monkey for $5 said you spoke of an API to share the VTT backend back when you were pretending to be your version of Chris Cow. Could such a thing be included in the orc? To me, that seems like a way more complicated thing than what the orc is. The orc is just meant to be a very simple open license, and maybe someone who's using the orc might have such a thing, but that doesn't mean that it would be included in the orc. That's everything I understand about the orc from having Eric on the show seems to point towards that. Like the orc is supposed to be something super simple that people can just agree to, know that it's going to last forever, or at least as long as any of these licenses do, and that you're going to be safe to use it.
Streets of Fire. Jason McDonald writes, I too like to do sledgehammer fights in leather overalls. If you've never seen Streets of Fire, which is more like a 2-hour music video than a movie, it is something else, but they do have a sledgehammer fight in that movie. And it is like with fire around. It's insane. That movie is crazy.
So someone asked if we watched the Matt Colville video from yesterday and what did we think about it? I did not.
I did not. I will. I didn't know that was a thing. I actually was trying to like not work for a day yesterday. So.
Yeah, I was trying that too for this weekend, but turns out sometimes things happen at any time. Not and so this bad. Is very interesting to me. Then there's a bunch of super chats that were related to the
Collected Savage Swords, Pilgrim Media.
To the sort of movie thing.
Yep. And Buckaroo Banzai. Oh, dude. AJ Plinkett set $3.18 super chat. Buckaroo Banzai. The Wizard Speed and Time, Salute to the Jagger, Kroll, Highlander, Starship Troopers newer, Dragonheart sucked, and that's newer. Buckaroo Banzai is fantastic, and if you want to see, they did the sequel, Buckaroo Banzai against the Crime League, World Crime League. They did it as a comic book, I believe. There's also Snake Plissken comic books, and they explain more of the world, like what happened to Florida and other parts of the country. They're good. And there's actually Snake Plissken meets Jack from Big Trouble in Little China comic books too. And if you want to see, there's a lot of expanded universe comic books of these movies because they just never got made into movies, but they did them. You know what are very good? I don't know if you've ever read them. Now we're going to science fiction. They did Mirror Universe expanded comics from using Star Trek The Next Generation. Those things are so good. It's like the Mirror Universe with the Star Trek Next Generation crew is fascinating. It's really good. It's great. I would recommend that if you like Star Trek.
So let's see. Artie Pavlov for $5 said with a statement which I personally don't agree with, that the D&D creative team doesn't care about the fans or lore. I don't really think that that's necessarily true, but that was a super chat for $5, so I'm going to point out that Artie said that. Duct Tape Man for $5 said the horse was Artax, the second greatest horse in all of fiction.
Oh,
I'm
right.
assuming that's
Yeah.
from the Neverending Story.
That's from the Neverending Story.
That one I actually did see.
Yeah.
So it's been a long
It's
time
been a long
since I
time,
saw
but no one
it.
forgets that scene. There's a couple scenes. No one forgets that scene. If you watch Kroll, you never forget the scene where it was the Cyclops and they can see their death. And if they didn't, that actually was interesting. If they didn't,
I watched Crawl, I think. I don't remember that scene, but it was a very long time ago.
The Cyclopses were cursed. They lost an eye, but then they were always able to see their death, and they knew when they were going to die. And if they fought it and didn't die the way they were supposed to die, they would die in some horrible, agonizing way instead. So when the Cyclops decided, he first was just going to say, "Up, it's my time," and then he said, "You know what? I'm going to help you instead." So instead, he helps them by holding open a door that's crushing him, and he holds it open so everyone could escape, and he gets crushed to death by a stone door extremely slowly. I was like, yep, that's pretty bad. And that is why 80s movies are the best, because they did not shy away from really disturbing stuff in children's movies. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right.
They were so good. That's why I am the way I am, Mark. Maybe that will explain
That's
it.
why you are the way you are today.
Dude, man.
So Tiger Eyes for $5 said that original Exorcist was the icebreaker for Georgetown undergraduates.
Yeah.
That's a classic. So like you were talking about Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, most colleges have like their unofficial movie. For Carnegie Mellon, it was Highlander, because we have the Highlander, we have the Scotty, Carnegie and Mellon. It's all Scottish. So everyone was always watching Highlander. Everyone quoted Highlander. It was the 80s when I went to college, so it just came out. It was just, I don't know what it is now. I don't know if they still do Highlander, but it was. So.
Yeah,
Goonies.
that makes sense.
Goonies is really good, by the way. If you rewatch it, the third act is a little cartoony and a little kiddie. First two acts, A+ Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Like, this thing is a real adventure. Very, very good. I just saw it again in the theater with my kids, and I was like, damn, this is really good. And it was like a real adventure, because they get a treasure map. And by the way, Mark, might have inspired me a little bit with Joel the Indigo Isle. All I'm saying.
Oh, well,
they get a treasure map, and they have to
get a treasure map.
They have to get Willie's treasure, and they have to figure it out, and they go through all these traps. It's pretty good.
I know that one in particular. Yeah. So I know some of these movies. I don't remember them that well because I've seen a lot of them a long time ago. Artie Pavlov for $2 did point out, he says that they said nothing is canon but 5e at Wizards. Let's see. I think I may have made it. People are saying that Steven is so right. And I think I may have made it through. D. Wesley asked me how many current WotC people have I worked with before, and the answer is a pretty decent amount. And they are great. Mm-hmm. They were great. The ones I've worked with are great coworkers, write great things, have very creative ideas. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely.
Yep. Oh, Clash of the Titans. We got Clash of the Titans.
Oh, Clash of the Titans. That's one I definitely remember
great.
from when I was really little.
That's a great movie. That's another good one. Harry.
What about Jason and the Argonauts in that vein?
That's too old. That's like anything. Really, it's about 79. I'd say 77. 79 is really the cutoff for, because there's science fiction movies like obviously like Star Wars and stuff, and like there's like Logan's Run, but those are the number of really good science fiction movies before the 80s and fantasy movies is really slim. But then after that, yeah. Oh, Hercules Returns. Come on now we're getting to goofy stuff, by the way. People are saying Gremlins. I saw Gremlins as a sneak peek preview back when no one knew anything. And I walked in and I saw it, and I was a kid, and I saw it with my friends, and we're like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. Oh, cool, Gremlins. Oh, it's all happy. It's all, holiday movie. And then we're like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, when it takes that left turn, you're like, oh my God, this is not what I signed up for. I thought I was going in for a fun family movie. By the way,
whoops.
Also heavily influenced Jewel the Indigo Isle. You know what I'm talking about.
I think I do.
Oh, Star
Steven.
Blazers? Dude, have you seen Star Blazers with the Common Empire? Dude, we used to watch Star Blazers. It was on every day before I went to school growing up. So I'd get up, we'd watch Star Blazers, run to school, and then we would all, that was what we talked about in our school, like around in lunchtime. We'd all sit around and talk about what happened in Star Blazers that day. Fantastic. By the way, a lot of accurate military terms in Star Blazers, like time to target. It's really good. It's
Do
actually.
you think it's because they did a lot of research and
Whoever
asked
did
people
it
who really
knew-
knew about the military?
Whoever did it actually must have known, or at least had a history of the military, because they had a lot of accurate military terminology in there. So I was kind of shocked when I see it now. I watched it again recently. I was like, wow, they actually kind of knew what they were doing. So
There you go.
I'm not talking about Oh, now we're talking about Battlestar Galactica. Buck Rogers. Forget it, man. You watch that, it's unwatchable. It is unwatchable. It is such a TNA fest. I think it's disgusting. Company Wolves, Interspace. Interspace was great. Beetlejuice, great. Interspace, that one of the most technical movies and special effects heavy movies in history. It still holds up. Very good. Very, very good, by the way. So, man, you weren't a movie person, huh? That's a shame. I lived at the movie theater.
I watched a decent number of these ones you're mentioning. I just like my opinion about movies is that
I know.
I like to watch them at home where I can talk to someone about it. If I'm going to go out with my friends, I want to talk to them instead of sitting in a dark room where we can't say anything.
So Ryan Adams is saying, is Steven a veteran? I'm not a veteran. My dad is. My dad was in the Air Force, a captain. I am in USAA, but I was very interested in the military and took a lot of classes in college in military history. And so I do know a lot about history and military. I actually wanted to join when I was younger. I was interested in the Air Force and a lot of friends who were in ROTC. Again, mostly I was in Air Force. I was mostly interested in Air Force. So I do know a lot just in history. And Lauren Seg, who's on our actual play, who's going to be playing tonight, she was in military too. She was a tanker in Iraq. So she's got stories, let me tell you. Can you imagine being in a tank in 120-degree heat?
Yikes.
Yeah. Exactly. It was a nightmare, and it sounds like everything she tells me, it sounds like an absolute nightmare. So
that sounds really, really bad. I can't handle the heat. I can handle the cold, but not the heat.
Well, I always say that because the problem with the heat is with the cold, you can put on more layers. With the heat, you can only take off so much. So there you go.
Christian Ice is telling me that I have to see every movie that came in that whole sort of string if I haven't seen it yet.
Yes. I know your idea because you're saying you don't like to sit in a dark movie theater with your friends because you'd rather sit and like talk with them and hang out. I totally understand it. All these movies are streaming. Sit them and watch with them with Linda. These are all great movies. And there's not that many. I'd say there's like 25 on this list. And none of them are bad. It's not like you're going to watch them and say, oh, this movie stinks. You're going to be like, wow, these movies are good. These are good movies. And I now added to my nerd cred, so you might as well. Yeah, cold does kill more than heat, though. You're completely right, though.
Oh, yeah, cold will kill you.
Yeah.
But I can handle it. I can handle cold levels that are pretty low, and heat just like makes me super lethargic.
Yep. And Ryan says he's a veteran. He was in U.S. Air Force, second sergeant intelligence. So cool. Yeah, as I said, my dad
and
was
Young says half the movies are older than me.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, Jason the Argonauts is way older than I am, but I watched that movie a bunch when I was little.
So for those of you...
I remember when I was little, I was upset that they killed the dragon because they could have just gotten away instead of killing the poor dragon. And now I made a book so you can play a dragon. So I must have been actualizing on my childhood sadness that they killed the poor dragon.
So Cave Dwellers, I've seen actually Caveman. There's another movie with Ringo Starr and what's her name from Cheers. That is a funny freaking movie. That is a very funny movie.
Now people are saying I should do movie watch for these weird
Yes,
80s movies on Arcade Mark stream. That's not really what we normally do on Arcade Mark, though.
By the way, there's a lot of people here. So yeah, my dad was a captain in the Air Force. He was a periodontist, and so he's a doctor. And I was born in Biloxi, Mississippi, in the Air Force. So there you go. That's my background.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we have seen everything.
Yeah, this is pretty good. We went through, we saw D&D short stuff. We did a Executives and Esquires role play. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should make a clip video of that, of just the part where you pretend that you're Chris Cow, and then you go through what you were going to do. Yes. And maybe another one where you reveal the sweetheart deals. Those are two things that I think that people were interested in. I saw people on other channels be like, they're about to reveal the sweetheart deals.
Oh, really?
In like Discord channels with exclamation marks. And so we then got to talk about a bunch of movies. Sean Wolf for $2 said it might be dope to do a watch party with films. So it looks like people really
like movies.
Are interested in that.
Because people, it's fun. It's fun to talk about movies.
Pirates of Darkwater, that's something I do remember, Pirates of Darkwater. I used to watch that, but they never finished it. They just stopped, and they didn't have all the treasures, or they didn't get to bring all the treasures of Rule back and save Octopon from the Dark Water.
So
there's just no
let's
ending.
Finish up. There was one good question. Right. So no more super chats, but there was someone asked, how do I think this is all going to end? You want me to answer, or do you have an idea? Because
I mean, you can give it a shot. People are asking for my Twitch channel, so I'm going to put it in.
Okay, you put that in. Yeah.
What do you think is the end game? How is it going to end?
Badly. Unfortunately, I think it's going to end by WotC trying to do everything that they were talking about in OGL 1.2. They're going to try to revoke OGL 1.0A, even though they can't. They're going to say it. They're going to say it's revoked. They're going to try to revoke it. They'll probably end up going to court in one way or another. And WotC might lose a lot more than they expect. I'm going to have my lawyer on, and we'll go into that in more detail, hopefully this week. But they can lose a lot. They don't understand just what's at stake here. So I think that's going to happen. I think they're going to control or try to control VTTs, which I don't see how is possible. So unless you sign on to the OGL 1. See, this is it. By revoking, this is the pillar. It's built on like the system. By revoking OGL 1.0A, it forces people to use OGL 1.2. And if they say in OGL 1.2 that you can't use any other VTTs and you can't do this and you can't do that, then you are now locked into their system. That is why they have to try to revoke OGL 1.0A, because if they don't try to revoke OGL 1.0A, there's no reason for people to move on to this. None. Why would anyone sign on to this if OGL 1.0A not only is around, but you can still publish on it? So that is why they say they're going to revoke it. And that is why they're going to do everything in their power to make it that it is impossible for anyone to publish anything for 5th edition or OGL 1.0A going forward. Everything is based off that. And if they do that, then they can force people to use their new OGL 1.2 or 2.0, whatever you're going to call it. And then they can say anything they want. They can put in morality clauses. They can make it they cancel you at any time. They can make you pay royalties. They can make it that you can't use VTTs. They can do anything they want if you sign on to that. And the only way they can do that is if they revoke 1.0A, which means they're going to court.
So that is pretty similar to what I think. But let me tell you what I think. I get some of my same sources from like Alan and other things like that. So it's not surprising that we're pretty similar. Mm-hmm. But my guess is absolutely, much as I say I want to be optimistic and hope that they won't, they are going to, my guess is they are going to continue revoking 1.0A. Mm-hmm. They're going to keep the thing in there that says implicitly by doing anything, you agree to 1.2, even if you don't think you agreed to it. And then what I think is that they're not even going to be direct. They're not going to come in like the Tarask and charge at you and actually sue a lot of the other companies. I think they're going to deplatform them by issuing takedowns on Kickstarter or other platforms and be like, this is in violation of 1.2 to get somebody else to do it. Because I think, to my understanding, that would mean that the small company would be forced to be the one who actually brings it to court and say, hey, you illegally did a takedown on me in this other venue. And that it would make it put you on the back foot if that happened, as opposed to if Wizards said, okay, you've done a Kickstarter that seems to be using 1.0a, I'm going to take you to court. I feel like it's a stronger move for them to just try to issue takedowns on Kickstarter or other platforms that have less skin in the game. But that either way, it's going to have to go to court, just like you said, Stephen, because or maybe they will actually just. The problem is, other than if you agree to 1.2 that says, oh, we don't have to pursue this all the time. We can just pursue it whenever we want. Fundamentally, if you don't pursue these kinds of things, from what I understand, it can make it harder for you to make a case when you later, if you do actually pursue them. Otherwise, I would think that they might want to just not care about the small fish and only go after their main targets like VTTs and the bigger companies. But they may have to go after everyone to show that they have a consistent policy there, and I'm not sure about that. Yeah, so basically, I think the same thing as you, Stephen, except I think they might be sneakier.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think they're going to try to use people like, Google, YouTube, maybe even Kickstarter, other people. They were just terrible. And I'm actually very concerned because you see, Kickstarter's tricky because Kickstarter's also in a very similar position, is they need to make money. And they make most of their money, not most, but they make a huge amount of their money through gaming. And if they are watching very carefully and they're seeing how quickly people turn the tables, and BackerKit has really ramped up and they're ramping up their platform. And I guarantee if Kickstarter missteps and mismanages this and says, yeah, you can't run 5th edition campaigns anymore, and BackerKit says, oh, we will, then you're going to see a mass exodus of the gamers and the hardcore, users from Kickstarter to BackerKit. So I have better faith.
I mean, you're still going to lose half. Like, didn't we get some significant percentage of people who looked on it, you said in a previous stream, who looked at our project came from Kickstarter itself? And
yes, but it would be the same people if they leave.
Oh, fair enough.
I would say Kickstarter is probably going to be smarter about this and will probably say, look, Hasbro.
Who knows what they already signed to get that 20% on the
Right. That's the other problem, is that they might be beholden to things they signed already. But the point is that if Hasbro's like, take these down, it's like, well, no. Because especially if they see, like, this thing just made $1 million, well, guess what? Kickstarter makes $50,000. Those they make a lot of money on those big things. They make 5%. So, like, okay, I don't know. We keep throwing away these $1 million Kickstarters. That's a lot of money they're throwing away. And not only that, if they throw away this money, they're going to throw away all these users, and it's going to result in them losing marketplace and losing money. Simple as that. That's it. They're going to lose, so they're going to have to try to figure out a way to walk the line of helping out Hasbro and not pissing off the creators and the people who back the the Kickstarters, because they'll go to BackerKit, and I guarantee what you said is true. But BackerKit is really ramping up, and BackerKit is doing something that Kickstarter's not doing. This is new. I'll tell you something no one knows. John Stats and some of my other friends are doing BackerKits, Kickstarters, whatever you want to call it. BackerKit is doing advertising and promotions for them for free. And that's not nothing. Like, they say, like, we will do $10, $20, $30, $50,000 of real money. Like, they will spend $50,000, not fake money. It's called soft money. Soft money is like, oh, we do advertising on our own platform. It's called soft money because it doesn't go anywhere. It's going from department to department. Hard money is when you're spending it on Facebook or YouTube, because you're literally spending the money and it's going out of your company. They're spending that much money, hard money, to advertise these backer kits to be successful. So that is a big deal.
I see. They're partnering to advertise to help you if you switch to theirs, because they know you're losing some people that you would have gotten on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Understood.
And they're doing that to grow the brand, because they know they need to get people. So they're smart.
Of course. So that's the kind of thing that you're saying to do well, where you work together with people instead of just trying to take them down.
Yep, that's 100%.
Tiger Eyes for $5 went back to the movies thing for a second and said that their only concern for me is some of the movies are pretty harsh. So what's the roughest, harshest movie I've seen and liked, and what is my limit? I generally don't like grimdark and harsh movies.
They're not grimdark.
Like the movies where like someone's going around with a machine gun killing a ton of people, or even like I've watched a lot of superhero movies, and when I was a kid, just because of really good Justice League cartoons, Young Justice, I wasn't even a kid at that point. I liked the DC universe for the cartoons, but the DC grimdark movies were too grimdark, and so there's a number of them that people probably think everyone has seen that I haven't, because I just stopped watching them because they were just the grimdark take on things. So I'm not a super grimdark, harsh, like mega blood violence movie watcher in general.
If you could take Conan, or you can take Beastmaster, which is pretty grim a little. There's some pretty grim. You'll be fine. That's about as grimdark as the stuff gets. It's not gory or violent. It's 80s practical effects, and 80s practical effects beats out digital effects and digital blood any day of the week. Because you're like, damn, because that looks real, as opposed to like, oh, that guy exploded, it was done in a computer, you know? Oh, and I will end with this. Edge Null for $5 says, Return to Oz is the most 80s and the most terrifying.
Oh, I've seen that one. It's pretty terrifying.
That movie.
I watched that as a kid. It was scary.
Win. That movie is the definition of a messed up 80s movie.
I loved Oz as a kid because that like my dad was reading the books to me, and like that Return to Oz that was scary.
Tron had some digital effects. Tron was all digital effects. It was the first nearly all digital effect movie ever in history, except for Last Starfighter, which had some of the first 3D animation effects ever in history, by the way. So,
So before we go, though,
yes,
I do want to remind everyone we have Linda Kodega, the reporter who broke the story on Gizmodo and got everyone to realize, no, these Roll for Combat people were not making up a hoax with these quotes. They're from a real OGL that was given out to people with that first like official publication about it. Is going to be on our show on Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern. So if you want to be notified about it, please subscribe. It'll send you out a ping that for the Linda interview, and I think that's going to be a really, really good one for anyone who's interested in this topic and wants to hear from a journalist who's like deeply plugged into everything on this.
And also tonight at approximately 8:45, 9 p.m., we're doing Extinction Curse.
Awesome.
And you don't need to know anything. I figured out how to do this. I actually figured out I'm going to do them like serials of the 50s. And back then, in those Flash Gordon days, they would have like 10-part stories, but each part was self-contained. It didn't matter. So this is what you need to know. They, being the PCs, found a compound filled with Tyrannosaurus Rexes and Zolgaths. And Hap managed to convince, through talking with the T-Rex, to have the T-Rex break out of its cage and attack the captives. And that's where we're starting this adventure tonight. So if you want to see PCs riding T-Rexes to eat Zolgaths, come on by. I think you're going to have a good time. I think, who wouldn't want to see that?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, who doesn't want to see that? It's going to be a total mess. It's going to be beautiful. Who knows? Anyhow, with that, I see people are still chatting. They're going on and on about those movies. boy, we hit something. We're gonna have to do a movie
Yeah, I
channel on
know.
the
It's
side.
interesting because like about 20% of the people left when it got into the movies, but the people who stayed really know your stuff about
Will
movies.
not stop talking about movies. I told you, people are like still going on
Yeah,
about
that's
the
why I
movies.
was saying some people weren't interested, but some people really interested.
Yeah, the movies are so yeah. Well, I could talk about movies to the end of the days. I actually was the movie in my college newspaper. I was the editor of the entertainment section for many years and did the movie reviews. So I loved it. Watch party with Mark. Yeah, we could do a watch party and we could see a movie. We could do Mystery Science Theater style and watch a movie with Mark and see what he thinks about it. So, Terminator. How can you forget Terminator? So, all right, guys. We will probably see you. Well, tonight, and then maybe not tomorrow. I hope not. And then Tuesday with Linda, and then after that. And just remember, Hawkmen dive. See you guys.